Now, your local 2 forecast first. Sponsored by Fashion Floors.
Good evening. Chief Meteorologist John Mayer here. We're looking at mostly clear skies all across West Texas. Temperatures a little bit cooler out there today. Highs only getting into the 80s and even the 70s off to the north. We got more cool air on the way. All the latest on what you can expect as we move towards the end of the week coming up. Local 2 News at 10 starts now.
Marfa ISD making history, hiring a female athletic director. It's a Local 2 special assignment.
This is not the first time that he's ran away, skipping school, hanging with the wrong crowd.
A 12-year-old boy missing for 2 months and dies from a gunshot wound last night in Big Spring Hospital.
And OPEC wants the U.S. to slash production. Find out if it's because oil prices are drifting south of $50 a barrel.
Live from Midland, Odessa, and Big Spring, we're Basin Trusted, Basin Proud. This is Local 2 News at 10 in HD.
Good Thursday evening. I'm Horace Brown.
And I'm Katie Orth. It's great to have you with us for Local 2 News at 10. Our top story tonight is one you'll only see here on Local 2 News. Many milestones being made this year throughout Basin schools, some reflecting test scores, sporting achievements, and outstanding students. But Marfa ISD changing the game by making a historic hire. Our Dawn Long tells us about their first ever female athletic director and what she has to say about the achievement. Good evening, Dawn.
Hey, Katie. Well, Linda Ojeda has an impressive coaching resume. Even more impressive, though, is her heart for her students and their success. And although she's experienced proud moments of her own, she says it doesn't compare to watching her students shine. Well, now it's her time as head of the athletics department and being the first woman to do so.
You guys need to turn those assignments in.
Coach Linda Ojeda thrives off of pushing her students to their full capabilities.
These were really, to me, some of the highlights of my coaching career.
4 years in the softball regional finals and huge successes as Marfa's volleyball and basketball coach brings her back to the best times. But as of last January, Coach turned in her title for a new one. The district's head of athletics. And she's the first woman to ever take the reins for Marfa.
I guess it is a rare thing. I personally have not wanted to make it a big thing because, you know, when you put yourself out there and you take a chance, it's a big risk you're taking.
While this is a historic hire for Marfa High School, Ojeda says she doesn't want all the attention. She just wants to make the athletics department as a whole the best it can be. Reality is, West Texas athletic departments are mostly ran by men. For a position like this, we looked into what people are making at 9 of our districts, including the top 2. Those salaries ranging from $75,000 to $133,000 a year. Ojeda coming in under $70,000. But it's important to note she just started as the AD in January, and she says she never wants anyone to think she's different because she's a woman.
It might be a historic hire here in our district, but I do know, and I have met at several coaching clinics, women who are in this position in the state.
The new AD tells us just because she's not alone, it doesn't mean she won't face some new challenges. While searching for a new head football coach, she says candidates expected to assume the role of head of athletics. Ojeda already taken the job before this football season.
And I think that's the biggest challenge, respecting the position, but also respecting the coaches, the needs that we're going to have in football.
In football and every other sport the school has to offer. Ojeda says she's proud of her accomplishment, but it will never be the highlight of her career.
You could be successful individually, but that's really not the goal. You know, we're trying to take a whole team to become the best in the state.
And while she's working to do that, she reflects on advice she's heard over her 9 years with the district.
You go out there and you do a good job, work your best, but at the end of the day, you're not working for yourself, you're working for these students to be successful.
Now, her first football season as the AD is right around the corner, and if you couldn't tell in the story, she's also an English teacher at the high school, so she's keeping pretty busy, and she says she's thankful to have a great team behind her. Reporting live in the studio, I'm Dawn Long for Local 2 News.
Thank you, Dawn. A sad story out of Howard County breaking overnight. A 12-year-old boy missing for more than 2 months. Mysteriously, he dies from a gunshot.
Now, the Howard County Sheriff's Office say they responded here at the Scenic Mountain Medical Center Wednesday around 8 p.m. on a report of a teen suffering from a gunshot wound.
That's where they found 12-year-old Jose Hernandez, who had been taken to the hospital in a private car. He later died. Authorities believe Hernandez had been shot at a home north of Big Spring, but the events leading up to the shooting remain a mystery. We spoke exclusively with a family friend who says the teenager was known to cause trouble but did not deserve this.
One of the last conversations that I remember having with him, we talked about penitentiary and death. Even though he was doing bad things, I don't feel like he deserved to die. You know, he was a baby.
It is still unknown who fired the shot. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Howard County Sheriff's Office. His body has been sent off to Lubbock, where an autopsy will be performed.
Now, Local 2 News will continue to track this story as more information becomes available. Be sure to check in on our website, yourbasin.com, for all of the latest.
Local 2 also paying a visit to Midland ISD to speak with a professional counselor who tells us that students typically speak about running away when they have problems at home. She says some kids are dealing with problems that could range anywhere from pressures at school to drug and alcohol abuse, leading them to consider running away.
The thing is, they're dealing with something, they don't know how to fix it, and so they feel like escaping might be the best way they can do that.
Mason says most kids return home within a week, and parents should know the warning signs of when children are struggling, such as a change in behavior or poor academic performance.
Down in Alpine, Alpine residents reacting quickly to put out an early morning structure fire. It happened east of Alpine on Highway 80 around 1 a.m. Residents used a water hose to put out the flames. We're told the possible cause was a barbecue grill. Firefighters arrived to douse any burning embers and wet down the area. Speaking of first responders, this week being designated as National Police Memorial Week.
We're told it's held to recognize both the service and sacrifice of those that have been killed in the line of duty. A memorial service will be held 1 week from tonight in Odessa. Authorities also asking the public to replace their porch lights with blue bulbs in honor of the 19 fallen.
Now, it has been a tough year for Texas law enforcement. 19 officers and 5 canines have been killed in the line of duty. Several of those coming in July of 2016 when a gunman opened fire on a police in Dallas, killing 5 officers before turning the gun on himself.
Crude oil prices have dropped about 11% since early April. The reason? Too much supply. CNN reporting today that OPEC has suggested that crude producers cut back on their drilling in order to keep the price between $50 and $60 a barrel. And analysts say that U.S. producers can make money as long as barrel prices remain above $40. And good news for those looking to save a few cents at the pump. AAA says gas prices have fallen pretty much every day for the last 3 weeks. The national average for a gallon of regular gas is now $2.34 and about $2.16 in Texas.
Sticking with money, the city of Odessa and Midland receiving sales tax revenue checks for May, bringing a surprising different being between the two cities. Midland sales tax dropped almost 4%, while Odessa sales tax increased more than 22%. Midland officials say even though the tall city is seeing a decrease in sales tax, the decrease no longer in the double digits like recent months.
Still are people out there spending money and using those services in our community. They're just not doing it at the rate that they were doing it about 2 years ago.
She also tells us that these increases we are seeing look very similar to the pattern back in 2012, right before the boom.
We are your local election headquarters. House Bill 101 passing the state Senate tonight, and will now head over to Governor Greg Abbott's desk. The bill, introduced by State Representative Tom Craddock, confirms the agreement between the City of Midland and Pioneer Resources to upgrade the city's water infrastructure. The $110 million deal is expected to begin in 2020.
Brooks Landgraf passing Monica's Law out of the House of Representatives today, just before the deadline. You'll remember Monica Deming, the name behind the proposed law, was murdered by an abusive ex-boyfriend in 2015. The bill would create an online database listing protective orders as a result of domestic violence. It is now headed for the Senate. The acting director of the FBI testifying today during a congressional hearing just 2 days after the former director was fired by President Trump.
The White House said James Comey had lost the confidence of FBI employees, a claim that acting director contradicted. U.S. Senator John Cornyn from Texas was quick to support the president's decision and pointed out that Comey has drawn the scorn of members from both parties.
Learned about foreign governments hiring lobbyists here in Washington, and unbeknownst to members of Congress, actually lobbying Congress to enact policies which may be contrary to the best interests of the American people.
The Trump administration has been adamant that the Russia investigation had nothing to do with his decision to fire Comey.
Well, Pecos City Council members hearing the first reading for a new ordinances tonight. One would require pets to be spayed or neutered unless owners have a breeding license. The second ordinance would prohibit inflatable bounce houses from being set up on lawns with sprinkler systems underground. And finally, they're also discussing limiting times trains can be in the city limits, causing road delays. Well, still to come tonight at 10, a Midland business selling $1 million scratch-off ticket.
Find out where the winning ticket was sold and where you may want to head if you're feeling lucky.
And winds are looking pretty calm out there again this evening, but we can't say the same for those pollen numbers. Grass pollen is the big one that's been getting up there over the past few days. If you're feeling a little allergic, that's probably the reason why. I'll have the latest on when we could see some rain to help clear out that air. Coming up next.
Your Local 2 Weather Authority forecast.
All right, John, the threat of rain is over for us, but the promise of heat is right on schedule.
All right, that's all for your forecast tonight. We'll be back with sports. Well, that pretty much sums it up. But yeah, there is still some rain chances coming our way a little bit later on in the week. We got to go a bit further in the 7-day before we see those storms popping up. But right now, eastern part of the state, that is where we're seeing the activity. Still dealing with a little bit of rainfall out there in parts of the Lone Star State. And this is all being brought to us by that exact same low pressure that caused us a lot of trouble earlier this week. The past couple of days, we saw that low bringing through those rain chances, bringing us some severe weather chances. But for now, for us, no, that's not the case anymore. We're clear, we're dry, and that is what we're going to be dealing with for the next couple of days. We're going to struggle to see much more than sunshine in this forecast as we move into Friday. Yeah, there was nothing out there. How about Saturday? Well, still not really seeing anything unless you look down to the south. And by Saturday evening, yeah, we do see some rainfall just outside of the viewing area, just outside of the Davis Mountains, the Big Bend area. Those storms are not quite here yet, but that is the return of some of that moisture that we're going to see. And by the end of the weekend, yeah, we could start to see some of that moisture moving back in and giving us some storm chances Sunday night into Monday morning. That's going to be the time to watch for. The end of Mother's Day is when we start to see that rain returning for us in West Texas. But for now, it is dry out there. Those dew points dropping again down into the 30s, the 40s. Off to the east, still a lot of moisture. Along the Gulf Coast, we got dew points in the 70s, and that's where we're seeing that rainfall. But as far as we go, no longer the case. And that's really the big change over yesterday. Yesterday, that dry line was still just barely making its way into West Texas. Dryden had dew points in the 60s. Now we're down to the 30s. And once that front moved through, once we had the dry line retreat a little bit further off to the east, that led to the drying conditions and exactly what we're dealing with right now. Some cooler temperatures and some drier air. Again, temperatures dropping down into the 60s, Seminole, Hobbs, 70s here in the basin, flirting with some 80s down to the south, but big picture, a lot cooler out there, and we're going to continue that cooling trend as we move into tomorrow as well. Now, on top of that, winds were a big issue for us with these storms that moved through. We were dealing with some damaging winds, at least with a couple of those severe storm chances that we saw earlier this week. Now, no longer the case. 22 miles per hour in the Guadalupe Pass, but as far as they're concerned, that's a light breeze, barely double digits here in the basin, and that continues into tomorrow as well. That calming in our forecast, winds staying single digits for most of the viewing area. We barely break 10 miles per hour tomorrow morning, and really from there on out, everything's looking great. This is all such a nice, pleasant forecast, isn't it? Until we get to the weekend, and that's when we start to see the big time changes messages arriving for us. Now, what should we expect this time of year as we're moving into mid-May? Average highs, mid-80s. Average lows, upper 50s. So let's see where tomorrow stacks up, considering what we'd expect at this time of year. Overnight lows dropping down, well, right around where we would expect those numbers to be. Low to mid-50s across most of the basin, and some 60s down to the south, but average is always doing pretty good as far as we're concerned. We've spent so much of the year so far way above the mark, and now these numbers dropping down for us. Upper 70s in Seminole, lower 80s, Lamesa, Gale, Big Spring, down into the central basin, more of the same 81s in Midland, Odessa. Start to get into those mid-80s a little further to the south. Trans-Pecos pushing around 85 degrees down along I-10, and then down into the mountains, a little bit cooler. Fort Davis 78, Marfa 81, Presidio still at 92, but you really can't do much about that. That's to be expected at this time of year. But once we get into the weekend, that is when we see the big time change from the lower 80s to the upper 80s to the 90s, and those 90s aren't going anywhere. 92 Sunday, 91 Monday, Tuesday. Keep going with those 90s all the way through the end of our 7-day forecast. Again, if we do see rain coming our way, it's going to be Sunday night into Monday morning. That's the big time to watch for. The end of Mother's Day, Mother Nature is going to cry that her day is through. And that's why we see those storms.
I saw what you did there.
Yeah.
But clear and dry, John.
Yeah, no, not too bad.
We can work with that.
Yeah, nice end to the week. I like it.
Thank you, John.
All right, coming up later, a look up in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's a bear.
A bear stuck in a tree caught the attention of hundreds who passed by. Find out what happened after the break.
Know of a community event or news story? Then contact us. You can call 432-563-4421. Email news@kmid.tv. Like us on Facebook at Local2News-KMID. And follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Local2News-KMID. Basin trusted, Basin proud. You're watching Local 2 News at 10 in HD.
Welcome back. Odessa College making history with their newest hire.
Leslie Alexander is the new Odessa College police chief, the first ever female chief at Odessa College. Chief Alexander was born in Odessa and a graduate of OHS and OC. She says it is unknown, but possible that she is the first female chief in the area. And winner, chicken dinner, a $2.5 million scratch-off claimed in the Tall City. Cito's, a LLC in Midland, sold the winning ticket, and they're also happy. They will be awarded a $10,000 retailer bonus, the winner asking to remain anonymous.
Staying in Midland, the Salvation Army breaking ground on the new facility in the Tall City. Following a successful capital campaign raising more than $8 million, a new building will be able to provide emergency shelter, food, and rehab under one roof, allowing the organization to continue supporting the county's most needy. The construction is expected to begin in July. Members of the International Olympic Committee in day 2 of a 3-day visit to Los Angeles is elevating a bid for the 2024 Summer Olympic Games. Officials toured various LA area sites such as Dodger Stadium.
Paris is the only competitor left against LA for the 2024 Games. Los Angeles last held the U.S. Summer Olympics in 1984.
And a fun story there. My dad is from the Los Angeles area. He got to work those Olympic Games in '84 in Los Angeles. So that was really cool. Kind of family story for us.
Oh, there you
go.
go.
So I hope it goes back because we still have family in the area. So that'd be pretty sweet.
You're rooting it for it.
Yeah.
All right, Tyler, some baseball tonight.
That's exactly right, Katie. Now, baseball and softball playoffs getting underway. Coming up next on your Local 2 Sports. Tonight begins the area round of baseball playoffs. I'll have all the coverage for you involving teams from the Basin after the break. Welcome into your Local 2 Sports. I'm Tyler Wessner. Area round baseball kicking off tonight. 1-6-8 team from the Basin still left standing, Midland High. The Bulldogs battling Keller Fossil Ridge over in Abilene. Game 1 tonight would go into extras, tied at 1, but Fossil Ridge would explode for 6 runs in the 8th to beat Midland High 7-1. Now moving down from 6A to 3A, Reagan County in Game 1 of its area round baseball series today against Childress playing over in Lubbock. The Owls losing a heartbreaker in walk-off fashion 4-3 to Childress. Now down to 2A, Fort Sam playing game 1 of its area-round baseball series tonight against De Leon over in Abilene. We start in the top of the second. De Leon adds to their lead when Calvin Martin rips one out into the left field wall. Kaylin Hodges comes home. Bearcats up 2-0. Now next batter up, Kevin Yeager with a bomb all the way down the first base line. The right fielder can't get a hand on it. Martin and Cooper Dyson come around to score. De Leon leads 4-0. Now, how about one more, shall we? Dawson Watley with an RBI ground out. Another Bearcat comes home to score. De Leon up 5-0, and that wasn't the end of it. Bearcats go on to shut out Fort Sam in this game 9-0. Now also in 2A, McCamey in game 1 of its area-round baseball series tonight against Albany, playing in Ballinger, and the Badgers getting shut out by Albany 6-0. Now over to some softball, 2 regional quarterfinal games involving Basin teams tonight. The first in 4A, Fort Stockton playing Fabens at Sol Ross in Alpine. In tonight's game 1 of the series, Fort Stockton winning big 10-1 over Fabens. Now the other, Presidio battling Wall in 3A regional quarterfinal softball action. Tonight, game 1, Wall beating Presidio 10-2. Now, the Big Spring community rallying together today for a send-off celebration for the Howard College softball team. The Hawks going to Utah for the Junior College National Tournament. The 3rd year in a row they made it to Nationals. Also a part of the celebration, John Huffaker, the Southwest Region Champion bull rider from Howard College, who's earned a trip to the College National Finals Rodeo in Casper, Wyoming in June. Now back to baseball. The Midland Rockhounds beginning a 4-game series tonight on the road at Corpus Christi. Hooks losers of 8 straight dating back to last week's series in Midland. Pick it up in the 2nd inning. Heath Philmeyer gets a liner back at him, but second baseman Max Schrock makes a nice play to get Ramon Lariano a 1-4-3 putout. Still in the 2nd, Philmeyer ends the inning with a strikeout of Kristen Trumpese, gives the Rockhounds a little bit of momentum. Now in the 3rd inning, Hooks in business. Bobby Boyd shot down the right field line into 3rd with a triple. He would eventually be stranded there at 3rd, and Midland will go on to beat Corpus Christi 3-1. Now the big NBA game of the night involving 2 Texas teams, Game 6 of the Western Conference semifinals between the San Antonio Spurs and the Houston Rockets. Pick it up 9:50 in the first. Rockets up 5-0. LaMarcus Aldridge tosses in the easy hook shot. Spurs up 6-5, and they grab the early lead early on. Now 7:56 left in the first. 10-7 Spurs. Jonathan Simmons taking on more of a role. And here, Patrick Beverly, former Razorback, steal and a lay-in gets the crowd fired up. Now 4:07 in the first. 18-14 Spurs. Simmons filling in again with his jump shot. Drains the three-pointer right here. Gives the Spurs a 21-14 lead, and that will be just the beginning of San Antonio's rout. Spurs go on to win the series with a 114-75 victory over Houston. They move on to face Golden State. I'm sorry, Katie.
Tyler, I was
sorry.
not I
know. She's pretty. I tell you what, I think San Antonio has been a little underrated with Golden State and Cleveland being so dominant.
Yeah.
They're pretty good.
And no Kawhi Leonard in this game. Didn't play with his ankle injury. And they still blow out Houston.
Of course, you knew that.
So now Spurs, Golden State Warriors, Western Conference Finals. We'll see how that goes.
Here we go.
And stay with us. We'll be back with John Mayer after the break.
For the end of the work week, heating up for the weekend, and then those storm chances coming back around Sunday night into Monday morning. It'll be something to keep a close eye on.
All right, this story is for our producer, Scott. He's from the Wisconsin area. A little bit of rain did not stop hundreds of people from watching a bear stuck in a tree today. Roughly a 300-pound bear was seen walking the streets of Wisconsin Rapids earlier this morning before heading up a tree next to the highway.
The DNR says the bear is still up there. They think he just may come down sometime tonight, and it created a bit of excitement for those in the area.
I mean, that's a dangerous animal.
Right.
Now, 300 pounds, and he's up there on those branches?
Yeah.
I'm surprised the branches still hold him up.
I'm surprised they're still standing there.
Yeah.
I would move. Move to another tree.
All right, that's all the time we have for news tonight.
We'll see you tomorrow. Good night, everyone.